part of this, and I think that you are going to find that there's a lot of really good stuff that we do in 52 Weeks of Greatness that we're going to be reinforcing. Great to see you, April. And then there's a couple of other things that I think are really worth solidifying. So let's jump right in. So as you know, we're talking about goal setting and prioritizing, and we've, of course, been on a journey so far of really trying to figure out what are our core goals, as well as being able to see what is most important. And one of the things that recently you'll know that I did was I put out a survey. So of all the rock stars in our 52 Weeks of Greatness virtual coaching program, what are the things that most motivated them to join the program? What are the things that folks need the most help with? And this was one of the things. So this is why I wanted to put together this webinar as a bonus thing to be able to give back, to show you guys the love, and frankly, to be able to reinforce that you're on the right track and what else we could be doing. So I just have to celebrate you guys because, as you know, I'm all about recognition. So let's start with some celebration, and there's tons of celebration we can have with you too, April. So we'll have to do a shout out to you in the next webinar. So Caroline, I am just so incredibly proud of you. Here you are this time last year. You're thinking, I'm full-time at my business, and it's not in your own business, working for somebody else, and I might like to go into business for myself one day. And here you are, you just celebrated your 1-year anniversary last month, which is so amazing. I'm just so excited for you. And why? Because you have been so great with goal planning. Like, you really have been an amazing role model to prioritizing and putting your goals out there. And as soon as you jumped into the program, you thought, you know what, I could have set that goal to start my own business. But it was for 6 months out. Do you remember that? It was for July. And then sure enough, I think within 3 weeks, you decide, nope, that's it. It's going to be February or March. You expedited it. And now you have a full-time business. You have too much work on. You're having to figure out, do I scale up my business? Do I scale it back? Which is exactly the kind of problem everybody who's going to be watching this webinar wants, right? Is how you get so powerful in your goals that, how do I manage it? All the success that I'm having. And Carla, similarly, she joined the program wanting to really focus on her health and be able to get back into exercising. And I don't think that she'd even set a goal for doing a 5-kilometer run. But she decided along the way that this is something she wanted. And look at the pride on her face the first time she does her 5K. I just was on Facebook with her a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of days ago, and she was, saying like, what, one step at a time. She was saying, I felt that way going up the hill in the freezing cold. So she's still at it, but it's using the same successes, the same things that have worked for her with her goal setting. And then Peggy, she's been so inspiring because she didn't even realize when she started the program that she wanted to be able to scale back her business, or her working, for her being able to perhaps work for herself or be able to work part-time. And she realized that I don't have to have the answer. I just need to have the choice and the freedom. So she put her house up on the market. It sold like that. And now she's downsized, which most people don't do mid-career, midlife. But who cares about what other people do? She just decided that this is something that's going to allow me to, whether it's to work full-time, part-time, go back to school. She's now got so many options. And talk about living your greatness life, because you get to decide what your goals are that works for you, because she's not locked in. So much of what I have been just getting from all of you guys is learning about, you've been making decisions. That's part of the successful goal setting and prioritizing, is what do you want? Deciding that, yeah, I can do this, and what is most important. And so we're going to continue to narrow in on those things. What I've learned from all of you has been successful, as well as other people that I coach, that I do speaking with, and so forth. Because oftentimes is what people look like on week 1, right? Like, especially think about like January 1st. Yes, I'm going to do it. I love my goals. I'm super pumped. And then by week 3, we're not usually so pumped. we slipped off the wagon. We start ruminating about, oh, here I go again. But there's no reason why we can't week 3 and week 4 and week 5 still have that same effervescent feeling. And And, Caroline, you're on the line. This perfect example of that. You just keep being more and more successful. And now you're so successful. How do I keep that going? April, you've had so many things that you've achieved in this last year. It's been such a wonderful experience being on the journey with you. And it just keeps getting better. Despite when obstacles stand in your way, you find a way for it to be like, no, this is just a path. This is what I needed to, this is the journey apparently that I needed to be on. And I can totally relate to that questioning because, as I'm sure many of you know, that's sort of what brought me to being really passionate about people focusing on their greatness and being able to create goals that align to that. About 4 years ago, one of my kids had a very serious mental health issue that happened as a result of some terrible things going on in the external environment. And we didn't know if our child was going to be able to get through that period of time. Like it hit a crisis point. And frankly, I was so not present to my life. I was just, I call it on autopilot, that I wasn't even aware this was really going on, let alone to making more conscious goals and prioritizing what's most important. So let me tell you with my heart, out to all of you, that the reason why I'm doing this tonight and why I'm so excited that other folks, in addition to you guys being able to watch this, is because if it weren't for setting goals, if it weren't for prioritizing what's most important, I don't know if my child would be alive today or in 5 years from now. So this is stuff that saves our lives and improves our quality of life tenfold. And this is what life is like today. So obviously it's so much better. And my husband, I noticed his shirt's like right behind me. So this is not a webinar about putting your husband second. That was just totally metaphorical. I didn't notice that until just now. So, what are we going to focus on? One is, of course, sustainable goals. Number 2 is about prioritizing what's most important. And number 3, knowing what's most important. That third one, it seems almost silly that why should that be one of the focus? And yet, so often with folks, when I'm coaching them, they talk about, well, but how do I know that this is important compared to that? And we start to actually doubt ourselves after a while that we even know what's most important in our lives and that we even have a right to prioritize what's most important to us, and trusting that we will also make good decisions for the people all around us. So this is one of the things that I think that I'm hoping that you and other folks who choose to tune in later get from this webinar is you can set great goals. You can prioritize what's most important. And then the third key piece is really believing that you will know what's most important. And after all, goal without a plan is just a wish. And wishes are really nice. But have you ever been with the kid at the playground and they pick up the dandelion with all the little things and then they blow it? And you just try to direct them away from your lawn because you don't want it spread all over all the dandelion seeds to take root there. I mean, that's what a goal setting can be like for people sometimes. It's just like, I'm just going to blow it and just see what goal sort of sticks. And it's very underwhelming. It's very disappointing sometimes. So one of the frustrations people tell me is that they just feel like they're constantly fighting fires, that it's like, I'm just going from this priority to that, and I don't actually have any sense as to what is most important. Where should I be spending my time? Oftentimes it's people telling me, where's the fire? And I'm just trying to put it out. It's not very rewarding. But also it's like the to-do list is so big, I don't even know where to start. And if that's not bad enough, our health is being compromised. We talk about in North America, we're getting so little sleep. The sleep that we're getting is not quality, that we're taking more medication than we ever did before just to be able to maintain a level of function during the day. And we're not exercising, we're not eating healthy. And so the third frustration I hear from folks is I'm just really worried about my wellness and my well-being. So how can we start to change that? Because at the end of the day, people don't want to look back on their life and shoulda, coulda, I wish I woulda. And it's amazing to me when I have folks come up to me after a speaking engagement and they're like 22 and they're like, wow, I wish I woulda. And I'm thinking, you're 22? Really? Oh my gosh. I mean, good for you for being so enlightened that you realize you can shift things at 22. That's really awesome. And we're already having regrets in our life when we've got it all ahead of us. And so really, ultimately, I think what all the things we're going to talk about today is about how not to have that shoulda, coulda, woulda philosophy, not now. And if we have it now, how do we shift that? Because we definitely don't want it down the road. What we want is we want to have great relationships with people. We want to be really present with them, to be able to make those true, authentic connections. We want to have time for ourselves, to be able to meditate, to journal, to reflect, to read, or just to chill. And then finally, we want to be able to have those restful places and spaces in our life. I mean, this guy's got a laptop on the bed. I'm not going to suggest we should be doing that, like put the devices away already, but he's probably listening to a podcast. It looks like he's got some music going there. So maybe he's like chilling. So how can we find time in our life that's guilt-free because we have been able to work on our goals and prioritize what's most important, that then we can go and relax? And that's kind of like the final frontier of really good goal setting and prioritization, is being able to sit back and go, I deserve this break. Because that's so rarely, we're kind of like, oh, good, I got my stuff done early. I can do something else, fit something else in my life. We're not trying to do that. What we want to be able to do is just be very zen. And I don't necessarily mean we have to be meditative about it, but we can know there's all these things going on in my life, and yet it's okay that I'm not working on those things, because I know what's my one, my two, my third priority. Those are my top things. Those are my core goals, or this is my one goal for today, and these are the things I need to do to make it happen, and that's okay. Because in our Western society, we don't usually think that it's okay to take that step back. So I'm just like standing here in the place of, we all deserve to have that. And frankly, don't you find you're so much more creative, resourceful, and you enjoy your time with people so much more, including with yourself, when you have that space and you're able to have that breathing room? I'll tell you, it totally freaked me out after one of my kids, when I was telling you about what a challenging time they were going through, a very come to Jesus moment, shall I say. I mean, truly, I'm not a super spiritual person. However, it was really a shocking, I needed to sort of figure out what higher power was helping me understand that the life I was living was completely not the life that I wanted to lead. I mean, who created this life? I did. I mean, nobody created it for me. I created my own life. And yet, when I developed this vision board, channeling this inner message about what my life should be like, the life that I was living didn't look at all like this, what's on this vision board. You know, it's top right, there's cozy spaces in the country, relaxing. Bottom right, healthy food. There's some yoga. There's cozy front door, welcoming people in. Bottom left-hand side, family vacation time, adventures, being out in nature. And, you know, I was still working 6 days a week at that point, let alone we were so much debt. We never went on vacation. And the top left, clearly I wanted to be speaking, and I wanted to be out there with people and enjoying time with my family. And I have to tell you, that was not the reality. Those words were things that I wanted so badly, but it wasn't something that was coming to fruition. But now I can tell you, I own that chair up on the right-hand corner. We live in a beautiful place in the country. It's very zen. We make super healthy food. In fact, everything that we've had in our household today has all been homemade. It's been really healthy. We've gone on multiple bucket list trips as a family. In fact, my kids talk about bucket list trips now. Instead of just like, I think we should go here, they say, you know, what's on my bucket list is, and I think it's really cool because we've done things that we never would have done as a family before. I mean, I'd have to tell you, if I thought too hard about the zip lining through Costa Rica, my children going first, if I thought too hard, we wouldn't have done that. But it was one of the most amazing transformational experiences, both to be up there in nature and see them just like through the trees, hearing the squeals of joy, and as a mom to be able to let go. It's like, wow, if I can let go of my kids in not a first world country zipping through the air with only a glove with a lot of leather to stop them, what else can I let go of that isn't even as crucial or as life critical? And then, of course, as you know, career-wise, you know, I'm living that career of the top left corner. And really so much of what we're talking about today is tuning into the things that most drive us. And I know you rockstar women who are on the line, you're really tuned into that. What are the things that are most important to you? And I just decided to pull from my vision board and create a word cloud of what those things are and posted it up. So the first year of my business, when I was absolutely petrified that I could actually make it work initially, I just looked at that and I went, are you still into personal growth? Do you still want to leave a legacy? Do you want healthy fitness, healthy marriage? Anytime I would doubt myself, I'd look at that and I'd say, no, that's still what I want. And it's very grounding. And so fortunately to this day, I mean, besides having a healthy family, fortunately, and this is our barn in the background that we're living in. This is, by the way, our album cover shot. We have zero musical talent in our family. But my husband has always wanted to be a rock star, and he's almost 50. So I think any day now, he's going to get this record contract. But as we all know in the music industry, you don't really always need talent to get a record deal. So we've got the cover. So if you guys know anybody who's like looking to produce a family of 4, we're ready. We've got the cover. Don't know what we're going to do. I hope you don't mind playing the spoons, but but really, seriously, it's sort of, that was one of the things, that was one of our life goals as a family, was to be able to be more in nature and be really present and grounded with each other. And I'm so happy and privileged to be able to say that that's the life we're living now. And I didn't have to compromise making a healthy income. That what my business brings in now is what I made in my last role, which is senior leadership role. And that happened within 2 years. And I truly, truly believe it's not because I'm this rock star entrepreneur, because I have a psychology and family therapy degrees. Like, what do I know about entrepreneurship? I truly think it had to do with really solid goal setting and being absolutely stick with it about what those goals are and not having too many of them. And so my question to you is, so that's my want, but like, why do you want this? What do you most want? What's the next goal for you? Or what goal is still on your list that you absolutely passionately need and want to have? When somebody you love may not be well, and it's easy to recalibrate your life. However, there are other choices that we made that were much more drastic than we had to make to be able to help our child. So because it came back to what does my husband, what does Simone, what does Justin, what do we each most want in life? And when those things come together, or when us individually, when we're clear on it, it's so much easier to stay the course. So if you're not sure, why do you personally want this? Why are you choosing the time, as opposed to all the other things you could be doing right now, to focus on goals? I really encourage you to think about that, because that will help you not only for the duration of this webinar, but also it'll carry you through. So here are the 3 things that I have learned from the Rockstars in 52 Weeks of Greatness about what are the best, juiciest goals tips. And the number one, Sandeep Ajula, who's a change transformation specialist right now, as we speak, she's speaking in Germany about it. So, kind of a cool woman. She talks about the importance of ease. And we often don't think about the importance of ease, because we think the goals have to be hard. We think they have to be so big. We think that they have to be such a stretch. Stretch goals are like how you reward your best talent. Why? Why can't it be a good link with what people do quite naturally and what they enjoy? So bringing ease to your work and your life. And when things don't feel a sense of ease, great opportunity to both reflect on, can I bring more ease to it so that the goal is more enjoyable? Just like you saw Carla runs with her husband. That was her husband in there. She's a very social person. That's how she brought ease to her running, rather than just running on her own. When she was running on her own, it wasn't fun. It wasn't enjoyable. And then the next piece is around working with your strengths and leveraging past successes. And I know, April, you're a solution-focused guru. You will absolutely love this, because this is totally solution-focused, is it not? So, a strengths tool that we use in the program, but I think anybody can use, is from Penn State University, the founders of positive psychology, the VIA signature character strengths. When we know our top strengths, then we go, oh, that's why some goals have worked well for me, and some careers have worked well for me, and some relationships have worked well and others have not, when it's a good fit with our strengths. And when we think of goals in terms of all the things we have to do differently, all the things we have to strive for, and we don't look back to, have I been successful in this before? Have I, even if we wanted to, let's say, lose weight, or we wanted to start a business, is there something that I've done in the past, whether it's that exact goal or something similar, that I can carry forward and pull into the present? And so when folks have done that, they've been able to see, not only am I not starting everything from scratch, but actually I have so much of the strengths already within myself, the experience within my life and my work that I can draw upon. So I'm not actually starting from ground zero. And then the third piece, so many folks loved the interview with Gretchen around running your own race. And again, so ironic too that, we talk about running the race, and then here Carl is running 5K when she thought she could never even run to the stop sign. That's how she jokes about it. And so when we have these big goals, like with Gretchen, as you probably remember, she talked about how she was told that she wouldn't be able to run ever again. And she at first felt like, I have to accept that. And then she realized, well, why do I have to accept it? So as she started to get a bit better and she got out of the hospital, she would walk, and she would be exhausted, but she'd walk a little bit each day, and then she'd be able to pick up the pace a bit and then run just at the stop sign, and then run just a block, and then just 2 blocks. And before long, she was running again. And it gave her such passion that she thought, well, you know what? Maybe I can run a 5K. Maybe I can run a half marathon. And once she had run 10 of those, people are saying, oh, when are you going to run a real race, a marathon? So she's starting to prepare for her marathon, and she's hating it. Talk about no ease. And she realized through that training process, oh my gosh, a half marathon is my race. That is my goal, is to run as many half marathons, not run half the number of full marathons, but have run as many half marathons as I can run. She's ran over 50. I think she's up to about 57 now. And the neat thing about it is that she's come up with this new term called a hemathon. In other words, a half marathon is not half as good as a marathon. It's just a different race. It's just a different journey. And I love that concept. So as it comes back to goal setting, is whatever goal you have on your plate right now, can you cut it in half? And does that bring you more ease? And if you need to, could you cut it in half again? Would that help? So cut it in half. And actually, Tiny Habits is a great website. Stanford University prof talks about the importance of, whenever you're forming a new habit, whenever you're trying to create a new goal, if you can make it the smallest possible goal, you are more likely to be successful. So half of it. And that's really where this a greatness goals trifecta happens, is when we have ease, when we're using our strength, and when it's all about small steps, we get a momentum. And so if we're thinking about starting our own business, what do I feel the sense of ease in? And I can tell you, for me, it was not numbers. I immediately hired a bookkeeper because that was not my strength. So part of ease is also seeing what you're not such a fan of and what you don't like so much, so that you can spend more time on working in the areas that were your strength, and tiny steps. My first step was finding a bookkeeper, and then I could find a tax accountant. And once I found a tax accountant, I could get incorporated. And once I was incorporated, I could do some business planning. You see, it's one thing. It wasn't all of them. It wasn't all at once, because I don't think I would have even found that bookkeeper had I been thinking, oh my God, I got to get incorporated. It's one step at a time. So these are the 3 pieces that come together. And then as we move into how to prioritize, coming back to that place of, do I have ease? Is this using my strengths? And is this the smallest possible step I need to take to get going, will help you then maintain that momentum. Is this making sense so far? Yeah. Anyone have a question, comment? Just do a shout out, let me know. All right. So I've narrowed this down. I've done webinars before where I've talked about the top 10 ways to prioritize. But again, in learning from my clients and learning from the amazing folks in 52 Weeks of Greatness, these are the 7 things that really stand out as the biggest ways to prioritize in work and life. Number 1, and this is not my research. This is, Stephen Covey talks about this. All kinds of people have mentioned this, the big rocks first. And when you try to just deal with all those, that firefighter, that image that we had earlier. One of the frustrations people have is because they're constantly putting out fires, but are they even the right things that we need to focus on? And that's the sand in the jar, that we take our time, we do all those things first. And then we try to put in other things that aren't as important, the pebbles. And then we have no room for the big stuff, the most important things in life. And that's those big rocks. So instead, we put the big rocks in first. So if mindfulness is a big rock, can you do it first thing in the morning? Can you build it in? If fitness is important, could you work into your schedule your fitness plan, your fitness routine first, and really honor it? Like I've done that. We're having this webinar before my tap class that I'm going to be skedaddling to half an hour after this webinar because that's really important. Whereas if it was like, how do I make that fit into my business schedule? Well, then I probably wouldn't ever get to tap class, and the world would not get a chance to experience a 41-year-old in a sparkly costume come June. And how awful would that be if you didn't get? I wore fishnets last year. It was quite a sight. Anywho, so big rocks first, then the pebbles, and then the sand fits in around it. And that's when, remember that image that we had, the guy sitting on the bed relaxing? That's where we have our free time. That's where we have our breathing space. That's where we can relax. And so if we don't do and we can relax because we know the big rocks are being taken care of. And I'm not saying every piece of sand that comes our way needs to get dealt with right away. That's why we all have things like to-do lists. I've got my to-do list, and some things it doesn't get to done. And occasionally it just moves to the next list. I actually have a list of things that aren't as important. Guess how many of those things get done? Not many, but I certainly have a lot more time with my husband because I'm not trying to do those on a Friday night as opposed to hang out with him. Next piece, of course, is say no. So when we know what our big rocks are, even our pebbles, the smaller things that are important, not as important, but they may be helping us in life, such as, you may have somebody that you care about, you want to pick up the phone and you want to chat with them. They're not a big goal. Big goals maybe around starting your business and, you're working on this fitness plan and so forth. However, you want to stay connected with people. Some of your pebbles on a given day might be, I'm going to call this friend, I'm going to run these errands and get that off my plate so I don't have to do it this weekend and so forth. What are you going to say no to? It may be to relationships that don't serve you well, that are one-sided. It could be to tasks that aren't really valuable. It could be to watching things right before bed that keep you up at night and ruin your sleep. What are the things you need to say no to? And I'll tell you, one of my biggest ways that I decide what I need to say no to is if it really compromises my family. Because, I do a lot of conferences. A big time for speakers is September, but my son was transitioning into high school and I wanted to be physically here in the province and available to him in case it was a tough transition. It was for me. Turns out it was a lot easier for him than it was for me. What does that say? But I was available. And I think part of that's why it was easier for him is because I was here and he was, I wasn't trying to, connect with him across the country. And so that's one of the ways I prioritize what to say no to is, does it fit with how I need to run my life and my business so that it fits with my family? And I don't mean everything needs to fit around them. I just simply mean the big things. Like a big goal for me was to have my son transition well into high school. That was a big goal. Seems strange. Maybe that should seem like it's a goal for him, but his health and wellness is a priority for me. Because if we don't, we end up, distracted. We end up saying yes to people and get in dispute and angry and grouchy. We end up doing work late and work that we don't want because we don't say no. And before you know it, we realize, we're deciding for our 1-year-old that they need to go to medical school because that's something that we always wanted to do when we were younger. We can let other people determine what our life is like and what is most important for us. And that ultimately, that doesn't necessarily make us most successful. And so, part of being able to say no is also being able to say maybe. And so here is an assertiveness strategy for those of you who, like to say yes to everybody. Here is how better than saying, sometimes easier than saying no is saying maybe. And that's, buying yourself some time. So, I would love to connect with you about that. I'm just not sure yet, or I need to check my schedule. That sounds like a really interesting project. Somebody sent me a posting just today for a board that I would love to be on their board of directors for, but I purposely did not reply and fill it out right away, because I'm going to have to look at how am I going to fit that into my life. As interesting and as valuable as that contribution would be, is that the best way to serve my community in the biggest possible way? I need to reflect on that. So my answer to myself is maybe. It's not even always a maybe to other people. Sometimes it's a maybe to ourselves. So that time to think about it, and that giving ourselves the permission that just because we like something, we're interested, we're good at it, we can contribute, that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to do it. We can say maybe, and whether it's that time or doing it down the road or not doing it at all, but giving yourself that space. A key thing too for all of this, I just gave you the example of my tap class, scheduling in the time. The way I have most consistently been able to work exercise into my life is that you know where to find me at 8:30 in the morning, Eastern Standard Time. It'll be very sweaty in a yoga class. That's what I do. And believe me, every Saturday morning, it does not change. I wake up and I think, oh, why would I ever plan to go to yoga early on a Saturday? I just want to sleep in. But it's like, no, that's my time. Sister, it is 7:30. Come on, get out of bed. You got half an hour. And I feel so much better after I've done it. And when I've fallen off that path of my scheduled time, ask me how many times I get to yoga when I say I'll go to a class that's later. You know what the thing is about later? Later is like forever. There'll be later well after I am off this earth. So later often never comes. But if it's important enough, scheduling it. And that's where big rocks, like my health and my wellness, is a big rock. And it didn't used to be before. So whatever your big rocks are, those are the things that I would say schedule. And on the flip side to that, not over scheduling, right? So the most important things we schedule in, and all the other things, it's like, we'll see. One of the things I've done as an entrepreneur, if this works for you, is I now have a calendar feature where people can jump into my calendar. Because people reach out to me all the time through LinkedIn or connect with me after a conference, and they'll say, I think that we could have a really good business partnership, or I'd like to explore opportunities with you. Could we get together? And I'll say, I'm always interested in having a conversation. I'll send them my 15-minute or 30-minute link. And you know what? Honestly, a fifth of the time is when people actually schedule with me. I don't know if they lose interest after they see the calendar link, but they self-select out of my life because they don't schedule time with me. And if they can't even be bothered to click on a link, find a time, and put it in our mutual calendars, then obviously the working relationship wasn't going to be that fascinating. So, how do you control your time so that you got a chance to do the things that are most fulfilling to you, whether it's dance class, whether it's reflecting time, journaling, making healthy food, going on adventures, hanging out with your friends, whatever it is, those are the things that are most important to fit in our calendar. And the question is, and this is what I ask for lots of people who say that they're not happy with the balance in their life, if there is such a thing as the word balance. I think I have a book in me like there is no such thing as balance. But anyway, so let's just work with that term because we all know what we're talking about. If we're trying to find more balance, it's like, what is the most important thing that you're not balancing right now? What if it became the most important thing next week? What would you do differently? And the neat thing about that is generally whatever they do differently, and it's so the benefit of doing it differently makes it become the new thing, the thing that's most important. And I know colleagues who have said, traveling was never important to me. I'm like, well, where's the one place you most want to go? Well, I most want to go hiking in the Himalayas. Like, wow, that's pretty big for your next going from no vacation to big. That's great. So when are you going to book it? What do you mean? What do you mean book it? I'm like, well, it sounds like that's the most important next thing. When are you going to go book it? Well, I don't know. Okay, let me ask you a different question. What would be the first step of considering booking it? Well, I could call my travel agent. And usually what happens, at least half the time, people will say, I booked it. Because all they needed to do was figure out what's the most important thing they're missing, schedule that time in, and sure enough, they find the time to go to the travel agent, and they find out it's actually pretty easy to book it, and they make it happen. One of the people that we interview for the program, Kim Shepard, we've interviewed her for a couple of different modules, and she is a master of time management. This is a woman who has had so many cool careers, from journalist to, she's been in travel, she's run her own companies. And what she's doing right now, she built from nothing, was not a company, to a virtual company, a recruitment company that has been sold for seven figures, and she built it in 10 years. So incredibly successful. So you can imagine how challenged her calendar is. And she said, the most important thing that I realized is you need to be productively prioritizing your time. 45 minutes work hard, 15 minutes play hard, every single hour. And I still have a hard time wrapping my head around this, but I tell you, every time I practice it, it is incredible how productive that 45 minutes is. So I set my smartphone. I'm showing it to you like you don't know what a smartphone is. I set my smartphone. Yes, I have the same looking one. And I set it to 45 minutes. And if I'm going to cheat, I set it to 40 minutes and then give myself 5 more minutes to wrap up. And then I do something else. I stretch, I go for a walk, I, do something else, something fun, right? Sometimes I have a little dance off in my office. I always win. But the point is, it's just not doing that thing. And then even if you have to get back to it, it's 45 minutes, super focused, concentrated. And you're so much more productive for that next 45 minutes, as opposed to slogging through. And it may have taken you 2 hours. Your total space may have been 2 hours, but you're much more focused in your 2 45-minute chunks with your 15 minutes breaks and the dance off. Yeah. Accountability partners, so key. So for a lot of us, we want to do something and we don't necessarily have a natural built-in accountability partner. If you're an entrepreneur, you don't have a boss telling you what you need to do. In your family, if you want to spend more time with your kids, you may or may not have that kind of relationship with you where they're your accountability partner. They probably have other things going on in their life. But there's lots of ways that we can find that we can build it in. And whether it's somebody who you exercise with, whether it's another entrepreneur that you spend time with on the phone on Fridays for 15 minutes talking about your one biggest issue, your one biggest success, and one thing you're going to do differently. But it's like religious. Every Friday morning at 8:30, you have that 15 minutes call and it's out. Who can help you with whatever your biggest goal is, and that they can hold you accountable? Because if you say in that 15-minute conversation, well, you know what? Okay, looks like I'm going to have to book that trip because I'm tired. I'm working too hard. I need to travel to the Himalayas. They'll say, oh, the next Friday, did you call? And then you're so much more likely to get that done. And let me just tell, I'm not sure why my numbering is all over the place. So shutting things out too, like making sure that you have space to be able to get things done. And I'll tell you, that's the only way I got my book done. And I know, Caroline, your wonderful husband, he's an author too. I'm sure he finds the same thing. The only way to get your big projects done is if you shut out the distractions of your life. And the funny thing is, my daughter noticed, I thought I was being really selfish. My husband would take the kids to the cottage, or he would take them grocery shopping. And I'd say, could you find maybe like a pet shop to go to so you could have, and I could have an extra hour for writing. And I feel guilty. But then sure enough, don't I get this little report comes home with my daughter, who is probably maybe 7, 8 at the time. And she's decided she's going to write about her favorite person, her interview. She's decided to write about me and how I'm writing a book that, interesting spelling, is FROG, that stands for Forever Recognize Others' Greatness. And she's been paying attention that for her, even as a 7 or 8-year-old, she could see mom needs that time to be able to get her book done. And they're super excited, and they won't tell me this. They won't admit it to my face. But, if mom has a YouTube channel and that she's got a book out and all that stuff, they think that's pretty cool. And so even though I had to shut them out to get some of this stuff done, they realize how important it is. And that's often what stops us, is we worried about what people are going to think. We worry that we're going to let people down. But actually, oftentimes we're role modeling for them what good prioritization is, and so that they'll be more successful down the line. Last thing is asking for help. So one of the great things about people that are out there in service too, when you start to, you sort of put out, and whatever you put out, you attract. And people who also want support in their goal setting are willing to help others achieve their goals. And one of my big goals, of course, as you know from this conversation, through other conversations we've had, is around supporting my family. And I went to a convention, and my daughter, I felt really badly about leaving her. She was going through some body image stuff, and she's a gymnast. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, at 10 years old, she's having body image stuff. What's life going to be like? And I met an Olympian who just happens to be somebody representing Canada going to the next Olympics too. And I said, have I mean, as a professional athlete, you and your colleagues must have had body image stuff come up. Would you be willing to film a video for my daughter? And she said, oh my God, I'd be so honored. This is this like 2-time Olympic medalist, and she's honored that I asked her randomly in a hallway, dark alley of a hallway, would she film a video for my daughter? And she said, yeah. So this was her video.
Hi, Simone. It's Heather Moyes here. I just had the great pleasure of meeting your mom here at this conference in Halifax. And she was telling me so much about what you're doing with gymnastics and everything, and I'm really excited for you and where you're going. Now, one thing she told me was that you're an amazing role model for all of your peers, and so it's really, really important that you are the strong one in everything. So you have to know that your message in how you treat your body and how you treat your strength and how you do all of those things are so important for you to live as an example of being a strong, powerful girl who's going to turn into a strong, powerful woman who's going to influence all of those people around. So eat lots of food, get lots of muscles, and go and kill it and crush it and have a wonderful life.
So cool, eh? I mean, like, if you don't ask, you don't get. And now Simone calls her my Heather because she got this personal video to her. And, and since hey, Heather, you want to come over? She's like, yeah, I'd love to come over and hang out with your family. So asking for help. And so often we don't prioritize our own needs. And when we don't prioritize our own needs, we don't ask for people to help us meet our needs. And so asking, and what would have happened? What would have been the worst that would happen? And she says, no, I'm not going to do that video for you. But she did. And it made such a transformative impact on my daughter. And, Caroline, you remember when you asked for help of our group, when you were saying, I'm looking how and where to grow my business, and you got so much great feedback. Like, this was the very first week of our virtual program, and tons of support, lots of great ideas. And that was because you asked for help. You used the forum, you used the community. And really, what's the worst that happened? You put a question out there and nobody answers it. No harm, no foul, whatever that expression is. But you did, and you got lots of really valuable feedback. And you went on to, as Heather says, to go out and crush it, So, give people important work to do because they want to help you. They want to support you. So let's recap the steps. Because I'm going to ask you guys, what's your, key step here? My last step is covered up, but we just saw it. So, big rocks first, say no, say maybe, schedule time, have an accountability partner, shut out. And then the last piece is ask for help. So I'm going to unmute you. And I'm just curious, what is the most important way of building in your priorities that you're committed to using and achieving your goals? Caroline, do you want to jump in, go first?
Well, I think for me, it's the freedom to make choices and certainly to go one step at a time. That was so important. And learning as I go.
Yeah. I
found that was really helpful. As I went through the steps of setting up a business, I had no idea what I was doing in the beginning. And so just that one step at a time really helped me focus on what I needed to do.
Awesome. And so what will be the next, for the next goal, the next phase of your business? Is there one of these pieces that will be essential for you, that you're going to explore it, you're going to practice it more, you're going to keep using it because it works for you?
I definitely need an accountability partner to get through this next step.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
And I'll look forward to asking you about that, how that's
Yeah.
going. Cool. April, what about you? Which one most appeals to you?
Uh, um, I would have to say, I've got scheduling time mastered.
Nice. I love how
Yeah.
you stood in your power. I love it. I mastered. I love it.
Yeah, and I'm actually really proud of my system. I've created a whole system for it.
Awesome.
But I often feel very alone in the journey of what I have to do and complete. So I think asking for help
Yeah.
or finding help, finding a team, finding somebody who can pitch in and share along this process with me would be really, that would change a lot for me. I wouldn't feel so um, by myself trying to get things done, because
Right.
I can grasp most of those things. I still have room for improvement, but if I had someone too, that would just be really transformative, I think.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Cool, cool. Yeah, it's different things I think we master along the way, and it's so awesome that both of you are standing in that place of, this is what I'm really great at. This is what really worked for me. I love that, right? Like, let's not be too humble here. Let's own where our successes have been, and in the journey, as you say, April, we always have sort of room to grow, and like, I'm still working on these things too, trying to get, really continuing to refine them and prioritize them. Like, my big thing is going to be shutting out to be able to write my next book. I need to take things off the plate. I need to reduce the amount of development and content creation and new programs and things like that, and to be able to now just really focus. So when we can be super successful and use things that work well to prioritize certain goals, they can almost have the reverse effect for other goals. So this is where having fluidity between these things can help, because whatever you're at, wherever you're at in this next step, next phase of the journey, it may require different things. So Caroline, if I can support an accountability partner, let me know. April, if I can introduce you to folks for that part of the journey, I'll tell you the 52 Weeks of Greatness was full of asking for help. And it was way more enjoyable writing the modules when I had some rock star that I was super inspired by being the interviewee for that. And all of those were favors of me just saying, hey, I'm doing this program. Would you like to be interviewed? So nobody was like going, I'm waiting to be interviewed by somebody right now. Like, I've got 15 minutes in my day that hasn't been filled. So reaching out, it's amazing how many people want to help, and all we have to do is ask. So cool.
Yeah.
Our next webinar that we're going to do in 2 weeks is around building a six-figure business that you love and getting financial freedom, because that was the second highest priority for people, was the financial freedom component. And one of the easiest ways I know that people can get that financial freedom is by growing a business. And not everyone is going to want to grow their own business. It might be a side business. It might be a business down the road when they retire. It might be helping a partner, or it's just the financial freedom. So I'm going to have both pieces in there. It's in 2 weeks from now. Would love it if you wanted to tune in. And if you know other people, whether they're in the program or not, that you think would benefit, would welcome them to be part of it. You guys know how to reach me, and of course, I'll be recording this if you think that there are other people who would benefit from hearing it. And I guess before we wrap up, any other last thoughts and tips that you have for achieving goals and prioritizing what's most important in work and life?
Well, for me, it's, just go for it. It can be very frightening to take that step. That's what I found. It was just so scary, and it felt like I was jumping off a cliff into the unknown. But once you just let yourself go, you figure it out.
Yeah.
You get there. And you might need a little help from your friends, but ask for it and make that leap. It's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. Goosebumps. Awesome. April, what about you? You've accomplished so much this year as well.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been quite a trip. And for me, I'd have to say it's small steps, very, very small steps. So when you were talking about, I just forgot her name, but how she said to cut things in half.
Yeah, Gretchen. Yeah,
Gretchen.
cut it in half, cut it in half, cut it in half. Absolutely.
I was like, this is exactly what I tell people. And yet today I still needed that reminder, just pull things back to smaller steps. So big, 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 big piece. And another thing that really helps me is I'm an introvert and I know how to turn the switch on to being an extrovert. And which you have to do a lot as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, to complete goals sometimes, but I'm naturally an introvert. So in this process, it's like I've had to work really hard to get out of my head. The goals, the dreams that I have are so vivid in my head, and then how do I get them transferred out into reality? How do I get an expression out? So I've been working really, really hard on that, and I just to get out of my head. And so just like little exercises, little things, or talking to people like an accountability partner here. That's another big piece.
And is there a particular exercise that works really well for you that we would benefit from knowing about? Like when you've got something really juicy and big in your head, how do you externalize it and start to make it concrete and a reality?
Yes, actually, for me, I am a digital maven. So people are like, "Oh no, that's terrible." But for me, I'm highly digital. So whenever I have a thought in my head, I immediately go to my phone, and it is just crawling with notes. And I don't like paper, which is very odd. Actually, one thing, I keep one journal for something else, but with the digital notes, I just created an Evernote account, and I made it think the way my brain thinks. So there's categories and tags and specific names and places and locations. And as soon as I have a thought, I immediately create a note, and I basically mind map these things. I do it right there in the moment. It's stored in my little digital cloud. I don't have to carry around all these. If I had all the notes that's in my Evernote, it's around.
Yeah.
Around everything.
Yeah.
So,
they'd be falling on you. And,
yes. Yes. You wouldn't even see me right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it's note taking in a mind mapping sense.
Yeah. And I'm really hearing that you get it down, like you get it out of your head so you don't have to hold it up here too.
Yes.
Right?
It releases that energy, and then I don't live in anxiety, but if I have an idea that it doesn't pop out properly, I will hold the anxiety. So when I can write the note, it lets that go, and I can always go back to it later.
And don't you find that when you are able to get some of those ideas out, if you come back to it and you're like, yeah, that's still a good idea, you're like, it's still a good idea, as opposed to sometimes you're like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't waste a bunch of time on that idea. Do you ever have that, or is it just me?
I think I have had that a time or two. Yeah.
Not all of my ideas in the shower are winners, I just have to say.
See, this was smart.
This was smart. This is smart. Somebody else must have written that one, though. Yeah. That's awesome. See, I can't quite be a digital maven because that is where I do my best thinking is in the shower, and devices and showers just don't get along very well. So yeah, but no, it's a really great idea to use technology to be able to prioritize your life, and that's probably part of why you're a scheduling master as well. And so I'll have to see if we can share some of your best advice with our group about your scheduling.
Oh, sure.
Your scheduling mastery, because I think probably a lot of people could benefit from digging into that a little bit further too. So
definitely Evernote. That sounds awesome.
Yes, it is my new favorite thing.
Yeah, like Oprah, right? And you get an Evernote, and you get Evernote, and you get right. It's
That was funny.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thank you for showing up today and for tuning in when you could be eating dinner or other adventurous things. Thank you for making you and your personal and professional life a big rock, and for spending the time together. Let me know. I'd love to have feedback from you anytime about what worked,